Sam, it's going to be fun. Are you about to shake me off or what?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet.
Push the button.
I'm about to hit the pitch com or put down some fingers to give you an idea of what we're doing today. This is a two-part show. One, given the fact that the Reds have been hosting the St. Louis Cardinals and the Kansas City Royals on one homestand, we kind of dubbed this the Show Me homestand. The Reds, need to show well against these two teams to get where they want to go. So this is the Show Me edition of Dead Red Cincinnati, which, aside from those two teams, also harkens back to the fact that the LaCure family compound is also in the great Show Me state of Missouri, right?
Asylum.
Where exactly is the asylum?
It's right. I mean, it's smack in the middle of St. Louis and Kansas City. So 2 hours from St. Louis, 2.5 hours from Kansas City. They put us as far from civilization as possible. I think that was a smart move.
So usually when you're between cities or locations like that, there's a preferred location and then one that is not as preferred for whatever reason. Is there a preference or an order, a pecking order for the LaCures between St. Louis and Kansas City?
St. Louis. Yeah.
St. Louis folks.
Yeah, definitely St. Louis. I mean, it just felt like an easier drive, whatever. We were going up there more for Six Flags was like a big family, the amusement park was a big family adventure. Then when I started playing ball up there, when we figured out how to use an airport, that was the closest one, which didn't happen until late. But yeah, definitely St. Louis.
All right, so that's the first part of this conversation, and there'll be some of that. The second part is we've got St. Louis or Missouri, and then we have Cooperstown, New York. So those are our two themes. And so throughout your days, you have had an association and rubbed elbows with either current Hall of Fame baseball players who reside in Cooperstown or certain future Hall of Famers. Sam, is that correct?
That is correct. And you could, as far as rubbing elbows goes, I mean, you can talk, the most recent one being Scott Rowland inducted, one of our colleagues that we love, who we're going to talk about a little bit more here shortly, Barry Larkin. But there's the Johnny Benches and, Joe Morgans and, these guys that it's crazy that they call me Sammy. Like, that's not lost upon me, like as a baseball fan, like that's not lost on me to get to spend time with those guys. And then there's the Joey Vottos, that you would think of being as a future guy. There was a Max Scherzer, who the last time he was a number 2 starting pitcher, it was in high school, and the kid was number 1.
Wait, you said Scherzer was number 2
behind me.
Scherzer was number 2. I just want to stress that.
I was a number 1, and the last time he was a number 2, we were on the same team.
Likely the last time and only time he was a number 2. But there's a good story there, so we'll tie that in later in the show on the stretch. But in the meantime, we pivot again to the Hall of Fame theme, and we bring in what John Sadak affectionately calls is our Hall of Famer and our captain, and that's Barry Larkin. 19 years of Red, 12-time All-Star, MVP, World Series, Gold Gloves, and yes, our Hall of Famer. So on one edition of Dead Red Cincinnati, we have our Minister of Culture, which is Sam LaCure, and our Hall of Famer. Lark, what's up?
What's going on, fellas?
Lark, you recognize it? You recognize this jersey?
I do see that jersey, bro. I see the jersey. I also see that glove. I see that glove on your hand, and I'm trying to figure out what grip you have on that baseball.
That's what I'm trying to keep it from you, man.
You know what he throws.
You got the sinker.
No, I fortunately never had the chance to face Sammy, so
we're going to get to that.
I'm good with that, but very impressive that he was a number 1 and Scherzer was number 2. That is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, dude, you're probably going to want to hang around for that story, right? Lark's going to listen to the rest of the show just to get that story. I know.
No doubt.
All right. This is a first for Dead Red Cincinnati. This is our first Hall of Famer, and this is going to be a great conversation. We'll touch on a lot of different things, but Lark, let's jump right into it with the Reds. This is the leadoff spot on our show. On the game broadcast last night, you brought up the word expectations in discussing where this group is at this time in the season. What were your expectations for this group when the season started? Where are they right now, and how do you put the pieces of that puzzle together?
Yeah, the expectation was to win, and that still is the expectation this year, and I think it's still attainable. The expectation certainly wasn't to play 500 baseball, which is where we're trying to get to. And that's what kind of sparked the thought last night when we were talking about, I think we're 2 games under 500. And I just kind of reflected on some of my personal experiences, especially when we won in 1990. There was a time where we were playing 500 baseball, but it was also pointed out that at that particular time, we weren't living up to the expectation, and that was unacceptable. And that's what I shared with the fan base last night. I feel like these guys are supremely talented, as we were in 1990. We were a young team. But I really truly believe the difference between what I see now and what I experienced in 1990 is that it wasn't so much the coaching staff that was putting that directive out. It was the players themselves putting that directive out. And Eric Davis was obviously that guy, but Chris Sable was that guy. Rob Dibble was that guy, right? Mariano Duncan was that guy. When Billy Doran came over from Houston, he was that guy. Billy Hatcher was that guy. And, Paul O'Neill. So that's what I was expressing last night. It's not the coaching staff. Listen, David Bell nor his staff can hit a ball, throw, move a runner over, get him in from third base, right? It's the players. It's incumbent upon the players. So my expectation is and was and will always be with a supremely talented team, which is what we have right now, is that internal sense of urgency will be shared amongst the players, and they will play accordingly.
So
I don't think we're quite there yet. And having a young team, as we were in 1990, it takes some learning, some seasoning. But I think that's what happened last year. Yeah. Last year was the seasoning, in my opinion. I remember kind of wrapping up the season last year saying, you know what, it was a good year because we failed. We failed individually. We failed as a team. But my hope is that we learn from and we are motivated by the failures that we had last year. It's like you can't continue to make the same mistakes. You can't if you're a winning club, you have to win. And the way you win is by learning from and making adjustments based on your personal experience.
So did your sight line and your expectations change? I mean, have you had to redo them a little bit? I had to remind myself of this probably even within the last month, man. You haven't had Matt McLean. You've got TJ Friedl for 40 games. I didn't have Noelvi Marte for 80 games. Now you put all those pieces on the field, and then I think, yes, this team is falling short of expectations. I think the expectations had to change when you weren't playing with the full deck of cards. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So listen, expectation is winning. It doesn't mean that we have to play 900 baseball, 800 baseball, right? So we definitely make adjustments based on what we see. But you know what? There's a next man up mentality. So if we fall into we don't have our frontline guys, so we can't win. No. That's not a winner's mentality. Any and everything that I'm putting out there is about winning. I don't really care about injuries. Injuries happen all the time. That's why you have depth. And I feel like we have depth. You think about Santiago Espinal. Think about that guy and the things that he is capable and has done, right? You think about all the guys that get an opportunity when our frontline guys aren't out there. And you look and you go, it's pretty daggone good.
Yeah.
Yep. You look at Carson Spires and how he has performed when he's been asked to step up. He's been, in my opinion, incredibly competitive and really, really good. And it's like every single person that comes up here makes a contribution. It has amazed me. Think about Reese Hines when he had his little run, when he came up here. It's the next man up. So I don't buy into we've had injuries but you know what? We have who we have. And
that's fair.
We win and we win. We win with what we have. And the cards that we are dealt, hey, we just win. So the expectation may not be because you have Matt McClain hitting 300, but you got Santiago Espinal or Jonathan India, who was very, very capable of going out there and leading this team with guts and guile and whatever it is. I mean, look at that. Look at the game we won in Milwaukee. Why did we win that one game in Milwaukee? It was Santiago Espinal. The team was put on his back. And this isn't a guy that we have that expectation from. But that's what has to happen. When I mentioned that 1990 team, I mentioned Mariano Duncan. I mentioned Billy Hatcher. I did mention Eric Davis. He was our everyday guy. But it wasn't the everyday guys that were getting it done. It was the other guys that were getting it done. And when you're forced into playing at this level, that's the expectation. So I changed my expectation based on personnel, but it doesn't mean that I diminish and I go away from the expectation of win.
I like it. I like that. I like that. I'll give you a ring for that one.
You get a bell for that one. All right. Let's do the opposite. So the opposite of an expectation is something that was a surprise. So when you look at this team this year and you look at the roster and the performances they've seen, where is there a pleasant surprise in your mind on this team?
Just about everywhere. I have to start with Elly De La Cruz at shortstop. Listen, I expected this guy to be a superstar, and he is incredibly sensational. No. And yes, he is streaky, but I am pleasantly surprised with his consistency defensively at shortstop, his consistency in making decisions on balls he gets to, whether to throw or not throw. And I know he has 20 some odd errors, as did I when I was a young player. I'm pleasantly surprised by, the way the team just gets after it. Listen, I'm a huge TJ Friedl fan, and I'm pleasantly surprised with all the injuries, the consistent contributions that he makes. I think he is the epitome of a Cincinnati Reds player, right? I feel like he has always been that under the radar guy who just makes a way for himself. Spencer Steer, his consistency. When I look up and I see Spencer Steer hitting 230, I go, how?
I'm shocked.
I'm telling you, I go, how? I mean, the power numbers, the stolen bases now, driving in runners, the slugging, that was the expectation. But I'm like surprised, like, how in the world is this guy not hitting 280, 290, 300?
Exactly. Yep.
I feel like Tyler Stevenson has done an incredible job behind the dish. I'm pleasantly surprised with his maturation. I can continue going on and on and on, but
one guy who's the guy that you, and for what reason you're surprised that he did this quick. Pleasantly surprised that Elly made the adjustment from the right side of his swing year 1 to year 2. Pleasantly surprised Hunter Greene became an ace. I mean, one guy who's your biggest surprise?
Because I've had an opportunity to be around these guys in spring training and kind of know them personally, it's not a surprise.
Okay.
It's not a surprise because there is this expectation, because I've had an opportunity to speak with these guys and kind of have perspective from their standpoint. But when I sit and watch Hunter Greene on the mound now, I go, exactly. I go, oh. But there was an expectation in spring training from him that this is going to be him. So I'm not surprised. It's been great to just see the maturation of Hunter Greene on the mound. There was an expectation from, I think, outside, and most importantly, there was an expectation from he himself.
Yeah.
And he is living up to what he told me he was going to do. So I don't think that exactly answers the question. I'm not surprised because I had a chance to spend time with these guys. And what you're seeing when they are being successful is what they expect to be doing.
Yeah.
So there really isn't a surprise.
From them, they're not surprised by anything that they're doing, but just, for an outsider, and I understand what you're saying, you get to spend time with these guys. I get to watch, we get to watch them every day. I get it. What's partner? Is it your question? You got a question?
No, you take it. You go.
So it was either, kind of what's next in the progression, and you can make this a two-parter. What's next in the progression for Elly? What would you like to see from him next as a shortstop? You were a pretty good one, I heard. And then kind of what's next for this team? Like what's the next? What takes this team from pretender to contender to winner?
Well,
However you want to go about it.
yeah, and I don't because once again I've had some time to spend with these players. I don't think there's a pretender in there. I think this is a young club that is still trying to figure out how to be more consistent. Um, what I feel like the next step is, I feel like when Luke Mailey went down, I felt
Mhm.
like that affected the team, and that's weird to say because he doesn't play a lot, or he
Yeah.
didn't play a lot, but his relationship with players was, I feel like, missed when he wasn't around. I don't know that because I'm not in the clubhouse now. In spring training I'm around those guys, but I'm not in the clubhouse now, and I stay away from the clubhouse because it is their clubhouse, right? And I respect that. So, from the outside, from my outside perspective, just watching these guys, I kind of feel like there's a bunch of young players trying to figure it out on their own. I think Tyler Stevenson is the most tenured player, and he's got 4 years, right? And that's telling you there's not much experience there. And so I feel like there needs to be there's a personality that comes out that helps to bring these guys together and say, listen, we have to play with a sense of urgency. And that doesn't necessarily come from the manager. It doesn't come from the coaches. It comes from the players. When your peer tells you something, or when your peer steps to you and challenges you, as Eric Davis did me, and Sammy, I'm sure there was someone during your playing career on the pitching staff.
I'm still scared of Arthur Rhodes.
There you go.
I'm still scared of Arthur Rhodes.
There you go. Somebody that steps up and challenges you as a man, as a competitor, right? I feel like that. I feel like that is where, that's what I was referring to, BG, when I said what I said last night. But that's where I feel like that's the secret sauce for winning teams. It's not the manager. It's you go into the clubhouse, and David Bell has created a culture, and it's cool. It is whatever it is, and the players love playing for DB, and that's great. But when you're out there in the field of battle, when it's pitcher versus hitter, and you go up there and you don't show the discipline to lay off and let the next guy get it done, right? When a mental mistake is made on the basis that can be construed from teammates as, hey man, did you really need to make that play? Or did you really need to try
young,
that?
But that's young players. Like those are young mistakes.
That is young mistakes, but those are the same mistakes that we made last year. And that's the point. The point is, if there is someone on that team that says, we don't make those mistakes, those are runs. Every single team that wins makes fewer mistakes than teams that don't. It's not that they're so much better. It's very simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple, right? It's about the lack of mental mistakes. I'm going to tell you this. Lou Piniella, love him, respect him, but he took me personally to a totally different level. Because you know what he said to me? He said, Lark, I don't accept losing. I don't expect to lose, and we're not going to lose. Simple as that. So the path of least resistance is running through that wall. You're not running around it. You're not going under it. You're going through it. So you know what I did? I went through it. And that, it just is what, and it was Lou Piniella, but it was reinforced by all those guys, by the Billy Hatchers and the Eric Davises and the Rob Dibbles, right? It was real. It was like constantly being on your P's and Q's, because if you slip, you're going to get chin checked. Not by the manager, not by staff, but somebody in uniform. And that voice is super, super loud and powerful.
Yeah. And for you, I've heard you say a number of times, it not only came from ED, it came from the Cobra. Those guys early in your career laid that out for you as well. And to backtrack just a little bit, as the only non-ex player in the room, I do go in the clubhouse, and your assumption about Luke Maley, I think that has legs, because there aren't many voices like his in there. And that's not to say there aren't good voices, but the ones that are different. The ones that stand out and make a difference when things like that get said. I'm going to go off script for one thing, Sam, if that's cool.
Yeah, you do
because
it.
because we have some time here.
Do we?
I want your best, Lark. Our guy Sean Casey, nobody has more stories, right? He's got this catalog of epic baseball stories, and give him credit, he's a good storyteller, and that certainly doesn't hurt. So he tells stories about everyone. He told one about you that was actually serious and pertains to what you just said about how you came to him one day in the dugout and said, other guys were telling him, we don't do this, don't do this, don't yell, don't do this. And he said, you came to him and said, Case, you be you. We're going to be our best when you are you, not what any of these other guys tell you should be. And that made an impact on him. But this time he's not going to tell the story. Tell me a good Sean Casey story from your time together that stands out. If someone asked you for that, what would you say?
Well, I've got a couple, actually. How much time do we have now?
All the time you want, baby.
So Sean Casey, super excited anytime he did anything, right? And on the field. And he would come into the dugout and just wear guys out with like his handshakes, his pumps, his fist pumps, the hugs that he would give. It's like, you had to brace for this guy. If he hits a homer, you're like, yeah. If he hits a homer, he's like, uh-oh, boys, put on your batting gloves or do something, because he's going to come in here fired up, right? So I hit a home run. Case was hitting behind me one day, and I hit a homer, and he was waiting at the dish after I rounded the bases. And I absolutely gave him a defensive bat shot to the chest, dropped my shoulder, and knocked the wind out of him. He was holy! Oh my gosh! It was so fun. That was one Sean Casey, but I got him back on that one because he just always used to give it to everyone. That was
payback, man.
So we were playing in Chicago one year, and the Cubs. This was during their 100 and however many year postseason drought, and the Cubs had a chance to go to the playoffs, and they had to win 2 out of 3, 1 out of 3, whatever it was, against us. And we won, or we split the first 2 games, so they had to win the last game. And so on the bus ride into Chicago, Wrigley Field, it's kind of older, and they don't have the tunnels to go underneath the stadium on, so the bus lets you off, at street level. And Sean Casey was getting into it with these fans that were just just giving it to him. Well, giving it to us, but he was the one responding. So anyway, we end up winning the game. I think Case ends up driving in the winning run. And so at the end of the game, as we're getting on the bus, getting ready to go home, and the Cubs are going home as well, the fans are really upset. So they're throwing bottles and stuff at the bus, and just letting us have it. Like, they're so upset that we beat them, blah, blah, blah. And Case is like besides himself. So as we are leaving out of Wrigleyville, I'm sitting right behind the bus driver, and Case and his hoodlums are always in the back of the bus, and they're doing whatever. So Case obviously is still fired up. So he comes to the front of the bus. He goes, Lark. Now, the bus driver's sitting right in front of me. He goes, Lark, tell the bussy to stop the bus. And I'm like, what? We're in traffic in Wrigleyville trying to get out of, right? He's like, stop the bus. I'm like, Case, we can't. He's like, stop the bus. And I'm like, okay, Case, don't leave me. The bussie stops the bus,
Don't leave
opens the door. Case runs off the bus, goes down the street, heckles people in the bar, and starts running back towards the bus. And people are coming out of the bar chasing Sean Casey. And they get to the bus and start. And he's like, okay, let's go. Case gets off the bus and heckles people in Wrigleyville as we are leaving because the fans gave him. That man has some problems, man.
He's the best, man.
He is a beautiful, beautiful person.
He's the best.
That's good. See?
He is.
That's good. And he said, don't leave me.
That was my favorite part. Don't leave me. Like, okay, shit, he's getting off the bus. Where are we going?
That's awesome. All right, we're gonna transition now, Sam. We're gonna do this Hall of Fame edition of Five and Dive. So Lark is on the hot seat here for Five and Dive. So Lark, 5 questions. It's not exactly rapid fire, but they're kind of quick Q&A. Us to you. And Sam, why don't we alternate questions?
You start it off.
I'll start it off, and then I think we both have a bell, so that'll come in handy too. All right, so the first Five and Dive with Hall of Famer Barry Larkin. Lark, toughest pitcher you had to face in your day?
Oh, wow. Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan.
Fair.
One from the left, one from the right.
I like it. Pitcher you killed.
You were licking your chops when you saw this guy was the starter.
And I wasn't available back then.
I really like him. And I really like him, but I had a lot of success against and did some damage against Jim DeShays.
Oh, yeah?
Lefty. Yeah, he's a lefty, and I like to hit lefties.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. All right, current player, any team, current player you would have liked the opportunity to play with.
Elly De La Cruz.
Ooh,
well, who moves to second base or third base?
Who moves to third?
Who moves?
Hey, I'll move to second or third base.
Bullshit. Hey man, he's gonna need a little bit more dirt in the spikes to move you off shortstop, brother. I'll say that.
Hey, my goodness.
Yeah, he's pretty special.
Elly. Oh, no doubt. But I did play with Junior. I mean, I did play with another pretty sensational player. Junior. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Current pitcher that you would most like to face?
Like right now?
Who's playing right now?
I'll get dominated by every pitcher right now.
You get that? No, that's not fair. You can't back out. That's not a winning mentality.
You said right now, bro. Reality is reality. I know the way we win is by me not being on the field. That's how we win.
One pitcher you'd like to Paul Skeens, Hunter Greene, who?
Just to dig in and see that to say, I wonder what it's like, or I wonder if there's a good comp for me from somebody that I played against and saw. I want to dig in against that guy.
Ohtani.
I faced. I faced Billy Wagner. I think Billy Wagner was the hardest throwing lefty. I like hitting lefties at the time. I remember we faced him in Philadelphia, and he threw me. The first pitch he threw 99. I was looking up at the board like, wow, that's pretty hard. 99, 100, and 101, and then I walked back. He struck me out on 3 pitches. So I would love to face any lefty. I think Lodolo would be
Chapman?
a challenge. Chapman at 100, yeah. It would be, for me, it would be a lefty that I would like to face, like a high blazing heater lefty, or a guy like Lodolo, and who I feel like Randy Johnson, it's probably super tough. So I feel like Lodolo would be, I think I would be swinging, and like that ball would possibly be hitting me in that back foot if I face Lodolo. I think he's that. I just think he's that good. Yeah. So I just props to those guys. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my answer.
Good discussion.
A lefty.
A lefty. All right. For number 5 on Five and Dive, Lark, we're going to run it back to 1992. Okay.
That's 92.
You got it? We're going to run it back to 1992. and give you a what if scenario. In 1992, if cooler heads had not prevailed and no one in the clubhouse had stepped in, who you got, Piniella or Dibble?
Dibble all day long, bro. Dibble was about to. Well, I feel like when we stepped in, Dibbs was about to lay the lumber. I feel like because Dibbs spun him around and he was in the locker, and the camera's from the back side, but I had a front side seat. I was right there. I feel like if whoever grabbed Dibble, whoever's crazy enough to grab Dibble,
whichever four people grabbed Dibble,
and he spun Piniella around, and Piniella was kind of like caught up in like Dibbs' shirts and all that kind of stuff. I felt like Dibbs was going to destroy him, like because that whole story was kind of back and forth, and he said, I didn't say that, they said you said that, and then Lou came out, and Lou kind of challenged and said, you want to be a man, and I could just see Dibbs and Rob Dibble easily.
Headline is Dibble kills manager, changes course of history. That's good.
Sure.
Lark, we could go all day. We appreciate your time a ton. We appreciate the opportunity to be on the same team with you right now at Great American Ballpark. And I feel the same way Sam feels about the relationships that we have now professionally with some of you guys. So thanks for doing this. We'll see you at the yard. Or maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Thanks for having me, guys. See you later today. All righty.
Appreciate it, man.
How you feel about that, partner?
I mean, I feel as good about it as I feel every day. You get to go in there and like we're kind of going over, when I make my rounds, get into the ballpark and, stop in and say hi, to get a big hug from John. And then who should be sitting there next to him is Barry, gives me the bro hug. And, we get to talk a little bit of baseball and get perspective on, and what we just got from him, which is perspective on the thought process and how simple it was before all this information came about, right? It was like around the wall or through the wall, right? I mean, it wasn't taking a shortcut and like everybody's looking for a leg up now, but back then it was just who wanted it more. It was a lot of times what it boiled down to, but to get to, I think that still needs to be a big part of this. And I'm not saying guys now don't want it, but just to be reminded from a guy who's had and done the things that he's done in this game, I think that it should carry weight wherever it comes from, but certainly from Barry. For sure.
That was outstanding. To finish things up, as promised off the top, we have the stretch now, and we go back to
it's just the gloves off now. We're just rolling.
Yeah. Okay. We're just rolling. Look in the comments section here. It said, go as long as you want.
Well, I also see in the middle of the screen, Barry Larkin's still here, so I better not say anything mean about it.
So here's what we got for the stretch. We promised back to throwing it back in the day, back in Missouri for the liqueurs. And you mentioned off the top, as a youngster, still in his prime back in the day, playing with Max Scherzer.
Yeah.
Give us that story. How did you wind up on the same team as Scherzer? What was that like? And what was it like to be number one when Scherzer was number two?
Short-lived. That's what it was like. Short-lived. So, like I grew up in rural area, so it was like River League, essentially, you're playing T-ball with your kindergarten buddies. And then, obviously escalates. There was kind of a, I don't know, what would you call it? Like a little travel ball team, but it was just, around, an hour from Missouri, from Jefferson City. And then it became like a couple hours. Then I got to high school and I end up on this kind of a traveling team called the Midwest Prospects, which they were going to be like college showcase type teams.
Yeah.
We'd go to, the University of Missouri and play a tournament. We go to St. Louis University and play a tournament. We go to Memphis and play a tournament there. So all these scouts could come from different colleges, and professional scouts and see kind of one-stop shopping essentially. So the team I was on was based out of St. Louis. Max was from St. Louis. There was a couple other guys, went to University of Arizona, University of Tennessee. I mean, it was a good team. And Max was, what I remember most about Max was just
younger than you.
Yeah, a little bit, not a ton, but I think a grade below me, but not much by age. But at the time, he was what I perceived to be super aloof. Like, because I mean, you know how intelligent, like he was too intelligent for me to get it, or I was too simple for him to get it. I mean, it was like the opposite ends of this like literal spectrum. And so he was. I was better. I mean, I was, and he might be the reason I would never get into scouting, because I would have never pictured Max having the career that he's had. I mean, he was kind of a-holes and elbows. Good job. A-holes and elbows flying everywhere. I mean, you could see there was arm to it, and he was real long and like stretched it out. But I thought his other pitches sucked. And, then he goes to Missouri and he's awesome and he's a first round pick and he's throwing 100 and now he's going to the Hall of Fame. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, there's like Greg Maddux is my favorite. And then it's like Max Scherzer. Like, he is one of my favorite people to watch pitch. He goes after him. But at that time, like, I just, I was probably peaking at age 18. I think I got worse to get to the big leagues, but I was probably peaking at that time, and Max hadn't even scratched the surface. I mean, you want to talk about raw.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's tightened some things up, and part of his intellectual mind was, now he dives into that analytics and he's talking about, he is looking into the spin rates and different arm actions. And that's why he's still around at age 40. If his body wasn't betraying him, I still would predict he'd get Cy Young votes today, Right. But just back at the time, I mean, just seeing how raw he was and what he's become, I mean, it's twofold. One, it pisses me off. And two, I'm so happy. Like, it's so cool, just to see what he's done. And he does good things. And I mean, he's probably, you talk about contracts being worth it. He signed a 7-year, $210 million contract in Washington and was, I think, 1-2 Cy Youngs, was top 5 every year of that contract before they traded him away. So that was okay. So I take it back. So Max was also a number 2 at one point, but it was to Justin Verlander, who's also pretty good. So aside from that, I was the guy. I was the guy. They were turning 2 in the championship game. No, I take that back. They've always pitched me the semifinal game to make sure we got to it.
Yeah, of course. But back in the day when the bus rolled up and the Midwest prospects got off, stuff was about to get real, right?
We had a little star power back then. That was fun. That was some of the funnest baseball. I mean, there were different eras of different levels going, where we won a couple state titles in high school. Like some of my little local travel ball team, we had so much fun and won games. It was always about winning, man. I never had a great time on a losing team. I'll tell you that much. You talk about the 2012, some of those Reds teams I was on, we were winning games, and a couple Louisville Bats teams but that Midwest Prospects team, I mean, that's where I made my bones. That's kind of what got me, I mean, really where I got to having a jersey on the wall. I mean, I guess is what it was. Cause I mean, growing up in population 256 Centertown, Missouri, you don't think you're going to get found, but big props to Jerry Daniels, who kind of came and found me and got me in those ranks and got me to Texas, got me to the Cincinnati, so it was fun, man. But Max, suck on that. I'll always have, you can have the Hall of Fame plaque. I'll have that.
I'll always have that. And that's a good way to wrap this up. To wrap up the Missouri part, because the great Show Me State of Missouri played this role in Sam having that jersey on the wall and having that number on the back of your arm, right?
That's right. And the asterisk to go with it.
That's awesome. Hey, this is a fun show. Show. Yeah. Like, subscribe, do those things, and we'll see you back.
All those things. I mean, if you don't want to listen to Barry Larkin talk baseball, maybe this podcast isn't for you. So go to hell. But otherwise, we're having some fun. So do the subscribe. We'll put out some links on social media if we can figure out how to do that. And we will see you next week. Later, partner.
Cincinnati.